Okay, good evening everybody. I'm sorry for that momentary delay. Can I welcome you to the ordinary meeting of the Council being held at the Donnybrook Council Chamber, Wednesday the 26th of July 2023, and we've commenced at 5:02. Could I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, the Wadandi people of the Noongar Nation, paying respects to elders past, present and emerging. Can I declare the meeting formally open? Welcome to the public gallery and welcome also to those people watching online. I advise that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded in accordance with Council Policy EM/CP2, and I'm to further state the following. The meeting is being live streamed and digitally recorded in accordance with Council Policy, digitally recorded in accordance with Council Policy. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed without permission of the chairperson. Whilst every endeavour has been made to only record those who are actively participating in the meeting, loud comments or noises from the gallery may be picked up on the recording. Now, can I just acknowledge the attendance here? Myself, Gail McGowan, Commissioner. To my left, Ben Rose, Chief Executive Officer. To Ben's left is Samantha Farquhar, the Administration Officer, Executive Services. On my right, Kim Dolcedelli has re-emerged as Susie Delaporte. Kim is unwell today, so sends his apologies. So welcome, Susie. I think your first meeting sitting at the big table. Yes, so welcome. And to Susie's right, Ross Marshall, the Director of Operations. So welcome to you all. We have apologies from Lauren Clifford, the Acting Manager, Executive Services, and as I say, Kim Dolcedelli. 2.2, approved leave of absence, there is none. 2.3, application for leave of absence, there is none. So I'll just move on to announcements from the presiding member. So as I always do, I take a bit of an opportunity to give a bit of an update and make some comments. Firstly, can I remind people, both watching and in the public gallery, about the cafe conversation to be held in Balingup on Saturday. I think that commences at 5:30, and thank and commend the Balingup Progress Association for providing the opportunity. It's a great way to engage with prospective councillors as we rapidly approach the October elections, and I'm looking forward to seeing people there. So nominations for the new council are expected to open on 31st of August 2023 and close on 7 September 2023. And I say expected to because everything seems completely in line for the elections on the 21st of October. But the only issue we may have is if the federal government decides to hold its referendum on the voice, which is looking increasingly unlikely at that stage. The council elections or all state council elections give way to that for a couple of weeks. So we think everything will be on train for the 21st of October. So a reminder also on that basis, the council will enter caretaker mode on 14th of September. This means that the last substantive ordinary council meeting will be the August meeting. I expect that to be a very full agenda with some important decisions to be made. And this will include the setting of rates and potentially the decision to proceed to the award of the construction contract for the VC Mitchell Precinct project. There will be council meetings in both September and October. However, in accordance with the convention, these will not determine any significant issues that might bind an incoming council. Today, senior council staff and I met with representatives of the South West Development Commission for a briefing on the feasibility study into reopening the railway line between Greenbushes and Bunbury. It's early days and yet in the group comprising representatives from the South West Development Commission, Taliesin Lithium and ARC Infrastructure, just beginning what they describe as an extensive community engagement process. I think they've said they anticipate that'll take probably up to the end of next year, and what they're trying to get to is a definitive feasibility stage to determine whether it's something that can be substantiated. Next week I'll be attending a stakeholder update on the VC Mitchell Precinct. The most recent update I've seen is encouraging in terms of process, and I look forward to a more detailed briefing. So on notice, Ross. People are no doubt aware that the council has written to the state government seeking an additional funding contribution in recognition of the substantial increase in construction costs. Staff have met with officers from the department who will make a recommendation to government in due course. We are aware that similar projects, such as the Hands Memorial Oval and East Fremantle Football Club projects, have received top-up funding, and the decision for our Shire to seek the same has arisen from the work of Ronnie Hurst of RCH Consulting, who has been assisting with the project. Tonight's meeting agenda covers a range of subjects. These include consideration of an extractive industries licence for an area that sits on the boundary of our Shire and the Bridgetown Greenbushes Shire. I will also be determining the outcome of the expression of interest process for the building that sits alongside the pump track, as well as considering a request from the Baling Up Arts and Cultural Hub for a service level agreement. The outcome of the annual performance appraisal for the Chief Executive Officer is also on the agenda, although it is a confidential item under the local government regulations. The performance review has been undertaken in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act, with the assistance of Jane Nicholson from Price Consulting. And I'll be using the report from that process to brief the incoming council. And I thank both Mr Rose and Price Consulting for their professionalism during that process. Over the last few days, I've had cause to ask the CEO to direct staff not to answer some questions put to Shire staff. I did so because the competence of staff was being questioned, and the person seeking the information, among other things, implied the council had been misled. In my first address as the presiding member, I spoke of the need for courtesy and respect, and the need to focus on issues and not individuals. I stand by the comments made at that time and at regular intervals since then. Over my tenure, I have sought to develop a culture of openness and transparency, hence not responding to questions does not sit comfortably with me. That said, I've also stressed there are both rights and responsibilities that come with seeking information and making commentary. And as someone who has spent a significant part of my career in the area of occupational health and safety, I'm particularly cognisant of the duty of care I have, both from a moral and a legal point of view, to support an environment free of hazards, including psychosocial hazards. There continues to be a small core of people who hold very strong views about what has happened in the past or have opinions about certain individuals. This is not unusual in any democratic system. What I don't believe they are entitled to do is to make derogatory and unsubstantiated claims that potentially impact the health and well-being of individuals or impugn reputations. This applies equally to those who might serve as elected officials, public officers, or members of the public. We all have a right to be treated with dignity and respect, and to show the same respect to others. I've spoken previously of the need to provide evidence to support complaints. To date, I have seen no substantiated evidence that would support allegations made. I'm aware that matters have also been referred to the Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries and integrity bodies such as the Corruption and Crime Commission. To my knowledge, no complaint has been substantiated. In my experience, much of the criticism has been based on conjecture, speculation, or a vague assertion or suspicion. Unfortunately, from time to time, this gives rise to assertions that I or others are siding with the agency or particular staff. I can assure you that I alone am responsible for the decisions I make. I am certainly not captive of any individual or organisation, and I will continue to do my very best to apply the principles of good governance to every decision I make. Members of the public have a right to ask questions and a right to determine their own response to information provided. Council and its staff should always endeavour to respond openly and honestly, but equally they should not tolerate unreasonable conduct. As the Ombudsman points out, over the years there has been an increasing tendency for complainants to overlook the need to balance their right to make a complaint or assertion with the rights of staff to safety and respect and the rights of others to equal time and resources. Consequently, where I form a view that a question or allegation is without merit or is undermining or derogatory, I will encourage staff not to respond. Equally, I will not engage in debate. People are entitled to their opinions, just as I am to mine. From time to time, that will mean we will have no choice but to agree to disagree. I would encourage those who I believe genuinely have the well-being of this Shire and the communities within it to reflect on their own behaviour. While it is not unusual in contemporary public service to be subject to smear, innuendo or derogatory comments, please take the time to think about how much such behaviours are magnified in a small community. This will be especially relevant as a new council of elected members is established. Good people will simply not put their hand up for election if they are going to be subject to unreasonable behaviour, and good staff will leave to go to places of employment where they are valued. On a brighter note, can I say with conviction that I have overwhelmingly enjoyed support and respect from the community, as have the staff. It is a fantastic shire and it deserves strong and effective local representation. But each of us is human, and often it is only the criticism that is heard. Thank you. And I would point out, not necessarily for the record, but for anyone that is interested, that none of the shire staff had any notice that I was going to say that tonight. Thank you. We shall move on. Public question time. Responses to previous public questions taken on notice. There are nil. But we have in public question time, and I haven't done my usual thing of asking, I did for those who were here earlier. We do have a question from Victoria, and Victoria, I welcome you here. And Victoria's actually, and I'll invite you if you want to say anything more to say more if you want to. But Victoria's has written to say she's requesting an upgrade of the road Palmer Street and for the creation of a footpath. The road condition is poor and unsafe. Some sections are particularly high risk for incidents for cars and pedestrians. The road is quite narrow, causing drivers passing cars or trucks to drive in the gravel or on the breaking away edges of the road. Runoff ditches are close to the road, therefore there isn't much room to create reasonable distance. There are many foot users on the road, people walking for health and well-being, walking their dogs, with children on foot, bikes, scooters, mobility impaired using gophers. Walking with any mobility aid would be difficult to impossible. In wet conditions, the road can be slippery. In some sections, there is gravel runoff after rain, creating further risks for slips or falls. And you do refer to an incident a number of years ago where an older neighbour slipped and fell on the gravel on the road, resulting in a hospital stay and surgery for a broken hip. And this has been brought to the council's attention previously. The previous president did take the time to come and review the road and agreed attention was indeed needed. However, this didn't result in any action. I am aware of the limitations of space for a wider road and footpath. A solution to this could be to make Palmer Street a one-way road, therefore allowing the addition of a footpath and a much safer road, providing access to all people's levels of mobility. I'll just go to the response in a second, but I would say that one of the things I have noticed is there are a lot of issues get raised from time to time around, sort of various roads and sealing of roads, etc., within the district. So, and I know in particular Palmer Street, because it's on the hill, I think gets very badly affected by the runoff as well. Oh, come up, if you just come up here and press the little button, I think it's the red button, or the button on I think it's on the right, so that we can hear you on the streaming. Yeah, oh, yeah. Now.
Yeah, so people particularly as well walking with prams or with, small kids on bikes, if they try to then move over, there's nowhere for them to go. So I do believe it is an unsafe road. I just want to say one other thing though. Even though the previous president did come out, she didn't promise anything. I just want to make that very clear.
That's
that no
lovely,
promises made. But she did bring it back to council, and the feedback at that time was, well, it wasn't very satisfactory, but it was like basically nothing was going to happen without any real, proper information, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the feeling that, there's nothing I can really say to you in concrete of the feedback that came back, except it wasn't going to happen.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. And certainly it appears, and Mr. Marshall might want to add something else afterwards, but basically the response is very much saying much the same thing, that requests for upgrading of roads or construction of new roads which are not included in the forward works program or the long-term financial plan are assessed against all the other priorities in the Shire when the documents are reviewed, and the next review isn't expected to occur until 2024-25, so it's about 12 months off there. And the Shire has recently completed a condition assessment of all roads in the Shire, and this information will be used in the review and the development of the Forward Works program also. The Shire's pathway strategy is scheduled for review in 2023-24, so the financial year we're in, including the development of a five-year expansion and renewal path program. But currently, Palmer Street is not identified in plans for road upgrading or footpath works. And then, like all other small, medium, regional, local governments, the Shire of Donnybrook Balingup has very limited own source funding for roadworks, which are an expensive infrastructure asset to develop and maintain. Most of the Shire's funding for roadworks is sourced from the state and federal government, and that funding is generally required to be allocated to road infrastructure of regional significance, which I think whilst the Shire will consider the request for improvements to Palmer Street, it's unlikely that any upgrade works will be able to be funded in the short to medium term, i.e. the next 5 years. So it's not good news there, but what I was going to do,
So was Palmer Street included in this 23-24 assessment?
I will ask that, I'll ask you to take your seat back there now, but I'll just, because I can't go into debate, but I will, what I was going to do is ask Mr. Marshall, one, if you have any other information whether it was included, but two, just ask in your relatively new role, if you can at some point of time in the fairly near future, have a look at Palmer Street, and as you're doing that assessment, make sure it is included.
Yeah, so, excuse me, I was just going to say, if it hasn't been included, if maybe it could be included in the next assessment, which is 24-25.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Victoria, before you go, thank you, Commissioner. What I'd like to do is come and have a look at it with you, if that's okay.
Yeah,
so if
that'd be great.
If I could get your contact details and organise a time to just come and at least be familiar.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I guess I'm learning the process a little bit, and I'll find out where it fits.
Well, that's why the previous person came out to see what we're actually talking about. So, yeah, that would be lovely. Thank you.
I plan to be around for 5 years, so we'll have a go, all right, somewhere in this plan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Marshall, as well. Thank you. Look, and I did also receive, but unfortunately received them late because they came to the Commissioner address, and due to my technological inefficiency, because I'd changed phones, I didn't get them until today, but from Ms Glover, a series of questions, about 9 in total, and I'm going to take those on notice because I haven't had, I was able to refer them to the staff about 2 hours ago, and it's not enough time for them to make a comment, but I'll just broadly outline. The first set of questions are around the pilot grant scheme that we discussed last meeting, and checks and balances and the identification and the overarching policy. The second set are a series of questions around the money set aside for reserves in future financial years. So I will take those and we will address them as questions on notice. So thank you. Okay, have we got any questions from the gallery from public question time? Okay.
Mine is actually more of a statement.
We don't generally allow statements, so. Okay, Sean, but come up here and, as I say. And if you can also press the, if it's not pressed. Whoops.
Sean Blackledge, 595 Sandhills Road, Charlie Creek. My question really is about Egan Park and the statement that says it was built as a netball viewing area and pavilion. It wasn't. So I was wondering where that history came from, because it was actually a loan received principally by men's hockey and the hardcourt hockey to build it, and they built it themselves, the building. The little building that now houses the electricity side was the viewing pavilion. So I just wondered where that history came from. That's.
Can I just say that was me. Sorry, I gathered what information I could find in the archives, and that was the information that I saw and put in. I'm sorry that I overlooked the hockey club. I'm happy to correct the record in any way you see fit in regards to that. And I'd really like to learn more about the history. That would be great. Yeah, but it was definitely a unintentional oversight, so I apologise for that.
Because the building was actually a loan paid off with never anything to do with the Shire. Hockey, especially hardcourt that I was involved in, we didn't pay a lease for the building. We only paid a lease to use the courts.
Okay, thank you. It won't, I don't think it'll affect our outcome tonight, but yes, so, yeah, but it's, thank you, Sean.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms Delaporte. Okay. Shane, did you? Mm-hmm.
Are we able to bring up the attachments? I just got a couple of questions on the financials. If we could just.
In the absence of Mr Dolcedelli, we may not be able to respond, but we'll do our very best or take them on notice. But
Yep.
thank you.
Cheers. Yeah, if we could, bring up the monthly financials. Say page 6 of the monthly financials. I think it's sort of like 320 odd. It was, yeah, like page 6 on the financials, but it's like 320, or I think around there. Yeah, that's correct. Awesome, thanks. If we obviously that being the end of June, this is unaudited financials for the year, so it sort of gives us an indication of where we're at for the financial year just finished. If we can just go down to the bottom there, and we've got the net result. So the budget was for a net result of 6.3 million in the black, and our actual was $2.4 million loss. So yeah, it's a $8.7 million difference there. So yeah, my first question is on
Okay, I'll leave Mr. I know there is a logical explanation because Mr. Dolcedelli has been through it. It's partly to do with the amount going to reserves and other work, and also the timing of the financial assistance grants from memory. Can you add any light, Mr.? No, we'll take it on notice. Thanks, Shane, and provide that to you.
Yep, cool.
I would, as a general observation, we have not received the audited financial statements yet, but we have had our early advice from the Office of the Auditor General, who are happy with the accounts. So thank you.
Yep, great. And if we can scroll down to page 37 of those financials.
I would dare say that this will be similar in the sense of detailed questions we'll have to take on notice, but happy to take the question. 37, and this is the disposal of property, equipment and infrastructure year-to-date actuals, yes?
Yeah, correct. So just after some clarity on that, and it's obviously related to our recent re-evaluations, if we just go to the bottom right corner, we've got the loss on sale of assets at $1 million, and then the net profit on sale of assets at $1 million. Yeah, just wondering if we could have an explanation as to what these are and how that affects our bottom line.
Okay, I'm not going to answer that, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to potentially take it on notice. I will ask Mr Dolcedelli if he is able to give some background, but this relates to some of the issues around detail that I consider unreasonable. So I'll take it on notice, and we will respond accordingly. So thank you.
Yeah, cool. And in regards to the, this again might be one for Kim, unfortunately, but if you could do your best. Given we've made a $2.4 million loss there, albeit unaudited,
I think it's an interpretation. I will make a comment, but yes, thank you.
yeah, it's not a cash loss as such, but it's the value of the Shire has decreased by $2.4 million. Yeah, what the impacts of that might be, given we have to reapply for the VC Mitchell loan, and that's one of the key things they look at.
Well, yes, and I don't know the actual response. As I say, I think it's an interpretation in terms of the actual financials, but equally in our discussions with Treasury Corporation, there seems to be no reason that they have to suggest that there will be any different response. We do have to reapply once we've accepted the financial statements. And the other piece of information I can tell you is that the interest rate that in the long-term financial plan and in all of our planning for VC Mitchell still sits below the amount that has been projected. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's good news. And just finally, unfortunately it might be one for Kim again, regarding the property management framework that's just been out for comment, are we able to have an explanation between the difference, or the, it refers to some of the lease fees as being minimum GRV, and I take that to be the minimum gross rental value that we have to pay on our rates, and then that was for sporting clubs, and then just clarity on that one, and then the commercial entities would pay a MRV rate, so market rental value, I presume.
Yeah. So gross rental value, minimum rental value, and market rental value. Yes.
Yeah. So the minimum GRV would be 1,500 or thereabouts, I believe, for rates. So the query was with regards to VC Mitchell, would the football club be classed as a sporting group or a commercial entity, and what bracket would they, or what category would they fall in? So would they be paying the $1,500 a year, or would they be paying a market rental value?
I think two things there. One, it's probably Miss Clifford's area rather, because she's been doing the property management framework. The football club would ordinarily pay a sporting club rate, but the terms and conditions of any lease arrangement are yet to be determined for VC Mitchell, so I think that would be something that would still be under consideration. But Mr Marshall, do you have anything else to add there? Is that
Only just from experience that most sporting clubs are incorporated, so as a result they're not commercial.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, that's how I took it. So yeah, just a concern is and whether that the budgeting for the project, essentially we might only be receiving, if we'd use that framework, would be receiving $1,500 a year for what could be a $12 million.
I think you'll find that the arrangements for that particular facility extend. There's a difference between a sporting club occupying its facilities, but that's something to be determined, and we will work it through. So thank you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, if you could take note of that, and obviously we've got this framework to, everything's.
Look, the framework is very much designed to bring a whole lot of leases and licences into alignment and provide the transparency. I'd commend the work that's been done on it so far, and thank the staff for that. There's been an ongoing process of consultation that we're wrapping up now. We will probably move to finalise that next meeting, but I'll certainly ask the question around the football club in the interim. Thanks, Shane.
Yep, great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? No. Okay, thank you. All right, we shall move on. Now, we've got confirmation of minutes, and the first is the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council. The Commissioner held on the 28th of June 2023 are attached, and that's at item 7.1 bracket 1. And the recommendation is that minutes from the ordinary meeting of council, the Commissioner held on the 28th of June 23 be confirmed as a true and correct record, and I will move and carry that, so thank you. Reports of officers. Director of Operations, the first one is 9.1.1, the Extractive Industries Gravel, lot 1131 and 1464 Spring Gully Road in Southampton, and the applicant, Mr Crombie. The recommendation, and I'm not going to proceed to read out the recommendation is the Council, the Commissioner pursuant to Schedule 2, Part 9, Clause 68 of the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulations 2015 approves the application for development approval for an extractive industry bracket gravel at lot 1131 and 1464 Spring Gully Road, Southampton, subject to a series to the following, and thereafter follows the conditions, which in total number 21, and then advice notes A to M. I would, however, point out that I did receive, or the Shire staff did receive, it's not a question, it's probably more in the line of a statement from someone involved, and it's from Mr Guest. I can't attend the meeting regarding my objections to the gravel extraction approval for the lots at Spring Gully Road, as I will be on night shift. What I would like noted in regards to upgrading the 1.2 kilometres of Spring Gully east of the Shire's boundary that I have requested is that I'm willing to contribute to the upgrading by removing my fence along this section of road, and would allow any trees / vegetation that needs to be removed to be heaped up in my paddock, so as I can burn it later. This would make the job much simpler. I'd replace the fence at my cost after the works are complete. I want it taken into account that this licence is for 10 years, and there being a possibility that 100,000 tonnes can easily be removed from the proposed pit each year. It is the size and duration of this pit that justifies upgrading the road, in my opinion. Whether the existing pit shuts before the new one opens does not make any difference, as there is no limit on how many trucks can run at any one time. The fact that they are asking for a separate entrance and exit to reduce the congestion of trucks coming in and out if there was only one crossover indicates how many trucks will be running at one time. It has been bad enough over the last few years with a large amount of trucks using the road, including some of mine. No further pit should be approved without the section of road being upgraded. I feel this is my last attempt to try and get this made part of the approval conditions. While I support the fact the Shires do not put in place too many hurdles / conditions for developers trying to get pits approved, and the Shire support developers in getting approvals, I believe in this case what I'm asking for is not unreasonable. Once this pit is approved, this road becomes a full-time haulage road simply because of the size of the pit. This impacts heavily on the safety of local road users. Please come up with some sort of plan between both Shires to get something done about this very poor section of road before putting any more trucks on it. Now, my understanding of this particular one, and Mr Marshall, if you need to correct me, please do, is that the proposed pits, there's already a couple of gravel pits operating, and I'll call them gravel pits because it's easier than extractive industries, sorry. A couple of gravel pits that have operated there for some time. It sits sort of across the gravel pits sit on Shire ground, but some of the road infrastructure is in the Shire of Bridgetown Greenbushes. There has been liaison. You know, whilst I intend to support the recommendations of the Shire, of the administration in this instance, having already questioned and asked them to which they have done, and I thank them for it, to revisit the extent of the conditions and the advice notes, because sometimes they can be, I just want to make sure when staff are imposing conditions and on things that they do so consciously rather than a cut and paste from all the referral authorities, and I think they have done that as well. I am sympathetic to the issues of the road usage, and I'm not intending to do anything that would not mean this is approved. But again, Mr. Marshall, it is something maybe I can ask you to have a look at some stage, whether there is anything at a point of time in the future around the roads. And I don't know, Mr. Rose, if you have anything there, but I think it's not an unreasonable request to I'm not saying it is reasonable to do something, but I think we should at least have someone have another look at it and see if anything can be done.
Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, I'm quite happy to make myself familiar with the road, Spring Gully Road, and I'll take Mr. Morgan along with me as well, so I can get a bit of the background as well.
For the use of buildings, I beg your pardon, and I think in this instance the outcome of that process has had a really positive, good result. Something that I think hopefully could work well. So as I say, the proposed arrangement with the Blackwood Youth Action and the Donnybrook Community Resource Centre with the subgroups, and potentially whether or not that can include the Veteran Car Club as a co-occupant in time. I think that is a potentially great outcome. And as late last week, I think it was on Friday, I mentioned previously I've been judging the Urban Development Awards in Perth, and one of the areas was social and community infrastructure, and possibly one of the most inspirational things I've seen was to go to Rockingham and see their youth centre, and that has been really developed with the input of the youth and the very purposeful outcome and approach there. And so I think this it looks potentially as though it will yield a very good result. So I'm very happy to support it. Is there anything you need or wish to say? You're happy for me to move forward?
I'm happy for you to move forward.
Okay. All right. Well, I will, but there is one thing that I would like to ask, well, two things I'd like to ask of the CEO. I would propose that in part 2 of the recommendation that it's authorising the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate and formally enter into suitable occupancy arrangements with Blackwood Youth Action and the Donnybrook Community Resource Centre, etc., etc. It goes on to say, once the property management framework has been adopted by Council or the Commissioner, my question to you is, do you have to wait? And can I delete that section of the recommendation, because I would like to?
Thank you, Commissioner. Certainly that there's no reason that we can't commence the negotiation post haste, and the negotiation process with the Donnybrook Veteran Car Club and the other respondents can certainly commence straight away. My recommendation would be that the property management framework is coming to Council next month, and that when we execute a lease document or a licence, it should comply with the property management framework, but we can do all of the negotiation before that happens.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. And equally, one of the things, since we're talking about that little area, we have for some time between some members of the community and police and others been talking about the cameras for the CCTV for the pump track, and also the updated CCTV around the Apple Fun Park. I think everything is largely ready to go. The challenge has been that there's no money in this current, in the budget that we're just wrapping up. There is money provided in the new budget, so I will, and technically I have to wait to approve that, approve the new budget. But if you can do anything in your power to expedite that, I would appreciate it, because I do intend to approve that as part of the budget, so I would rather not wait any longer than we have to, so thank you. So on that basis, I will move and carry those recommendations with the deletion of once the property management framework has been adopted by Council, because I do appreciate it probably won't be executed until after that has happened. So thank you for that. That could be action. 9.2.4, request for a service level agreement, the Bailing Up Arts and Culture Hub. The CEO and I had a very good meeting with Mr Hodge and Miss Chia from the Bailing Up Arts and Culture Club, where they presented to us a proposal for a service level agreement. So the executive recommendation is the Council, the Commissioner, acknowledge the work undertaken by the Bailing Up Arts and Culture Hub as a subcommittee of the Bailing Up Progress Association on the proposal to date. 2, directs the Chief Executive Officer to include consideration of the requested service level agreement funding within the draft 2023-24 Shire budget. Directs the Chief Executive Officer to advise the Bailing Up Arts and Culture Hub of resolutions 1 and 2 above, with further advice that inclusion of funding in the draft 2023-24 Shire budget is not an indication or a pre-approval of funding for the requested service level agreement, and I am prepared to move and carry that. Probably make the side note that they should be reasonably confident that that will be forthcoming. I haven't missed anything there, have I? No. Okay. Okay, so item 9.3, 9.3.1, caretaker period. This is really for information, but also for a formal notation that the council, the commissioner notes the provisions within council policy EM/CP6 caretaker, attachment 9.3.1 bracket 1, and the commencement of the caretaker period from 14th of September 2023. And I intend to move and carry that. I would just note that whilst that is now a formal requirement of the new local government reforms, or it's about to be, if it hasn't, soon to be, we had already had, and thanks to the work of the previous council, had already instituted that sort of policy mechanism. So, so basically the caretaker period applies from the close of nominations, which is 37 days prior to the election day, and that will commence on Thursday the 14th of September until 6 p.m. on the election day of the 21st of October. So I would note that at that time. So thank you. Which, as I said, means that we the last ordinary council meeting with substantive decision items will be the next one in August, unless there is a special council meeting needed, which at this stage we're not anticipating. 9.3.2, the Welga Annual General Meeting and Convention. The council, bracket the commissioner, one, authorise Commissioner McGowan and the Chief Executive Officer as voting delegates for the 2023 Welga Annual General Meeting. 2, authorise attending senior staff members as proxy delegates for the 2023 Welga Annual General Meeting. 3, endorse attendance at the Welga Convention 2023 for the Commissioner, Chief Executive Officer and up to 2 senior staff. I'm prepared to move and carry that, although I have noted to Mr Rose that there may be one day that I am unavailable, so we will be looking to have a staff member attend, but I will be there for the first evening and the next day. The next item is the 9.3.3, the council plan, the biannual progress report from April 2023 to June 2023, so the quarterly report there. The recommendation is the council, the commissioner, receives the council plan 2022-2032 biannual update, April 23 to June 23 as shown in attachment 9.3.3 bracket 1, acknowledges the status update of the 2022-23 priority projects for consideration in the next review of the council plan during 2023-24, and directs the Chief Executive Officer to publish the council plan biannual update on the Shires website, and I will move and carry that. And just note that it's a very useful document that sort of sets out those priorities and where things are in the implementation phase. So that's that point. We now move to item 10, which is elected member motions which previous notice has been given, and there are none. And then item 11, new business of an urgent nature introduced by decision of the meeting. There is nil. And then we move to meetings closed to the public, matters for which the meeting may be closed. And this is item 12.1.1, the Chief Executive Officer Annual Performance Appraisal 2023. The report is confidential in accordance with 5.23 bracket 2, bracket little a and little b of the Local Government Act 1995, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for a matter affecting an employee or employees, and b, the personal affairs of any person. So on that basis, I will be closing the meeting to the public to receive that report, and just noting that the actual local government legislation requires me to carry out an annual performance review to be carried out. So in this instance, as we've previously reported, and as is reported in the general papers, we've used Price Consulting, but we also, as well as having input from me rather than just simply being me, we sought input from senior staff and members of the Audit and Risk Committee, so that has been done. So on that basis, I close the meeting to the public. just in case people don't feel the need to stay around to hear me actually read out the closure, I will advise that the next ordinary council meeting will be held on the 23rd of August 2023, commencing at 5 p.m. in the Shire of Donnybrook Balingup Council Chamber, so here. So I look forward to seeing people then, and I think that will be quite a meaty agenda, so I look forward to people attending that and joining us online. So with that, I close this part of the meeting and do it, yes, and thank you. Thank you for attending. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for attending. Okay. Item 13, the Commissioner to advise the next ordinary council meeting will be held on 23rd of August 2023, commencing at 5 p.m. in the Shire of Donnybrook Balingup Council Chamber. Thank you, and thank you for attending, and good night. Oh, the meeting closed, declaring the meeting closed at 5:57 p.m. Thank you, and thank you to those who joined us on live stream. Thank you.